Good job, why are you proud of that?
That's right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Building Innovations, 14th Building Innovations year 2026. I want to start, as we all do in this industry, with a safety moment. So we do not expect to have any fire drills. In this hotel, if there is an actual emergency, you will hear the alarms twice, and then all the strobes will go off. And if everyone could, you exit out of all the various conference rooms over to the coat check area, past the bathrooms, immediately to the left. There's stairs all the way down. Then we will have a safe area where we'll take attendance of the attendees. That'll be near the pond. Now, I start with this, as many of you start, because safety in construction and the AEC industry is a transformation that worked. Many of us, I think, remember when safety wasn't a core tenet of a lot of construction practices. Why is this important? Because transformation is a key point that we hope to address in the next couple of days. The transformation that we're looking at is the way that we view the built environment. We believe, and our theme of advancing the built environment as a system of systems looks at the way the built environment is structured, is built, is maintained, is conceived in a completely different way. So before I joined NIMS, I was the Chief Transformation Officer for a leading AE firm, and people would ask me, what do you do here? And then they would ask, what is transformation? And a lot of people think transformation, and we use a golf analogy, is like the most expensive new driver, right? Titanium, carbon fiber, all this stuff is very, very, very sexy. And you have this $1,000 driver, and when you hit it, the ball goes even further to the right. True transformation is about looking at the underlying processes involved. It's about making sure that your fundamentals are strong, you have a swing, you are aligned properly, so that you get the performance result that you want. The built environment is no different. And we're trying to really focus in on transformation. The way that we can see things is to build bridges between the silos. We have got to a point where we have optimized within silos to a level that there is no more that we can bring. Instead, by looking at how innovation and transformation in the built environment now relies on interconnected systems. So instead of worrying about one particular system, you look at the built environment as a system of systems, and suddenly it opens up new performance horizons. So as we look through and we talk about transformation, I kind of want to talk about how we are right here, meeting the moment. And meeting the moment in this space, we have to first start by going back to the 60s and 70s. So the 60s and 70s, they had big, ambitious ideas, right? Many people don't realize, but AI was largely conceived in the 60s and 70s. In the 60s and 70s, you had the Apollo missions going to the moon. In the 60s and 70s, we had Operation Breakthrough, which talked about bringing true industrialized construction to off-site methods and means, so that there would be a revolution in affordable, safe, reliable, resilient, sustainable housing across all the communities in America. Here we are, many, many decades later, and we have realized the hopes and potential of AI, and that is continuing forward. Artemis brings us back to the moon. And in conferences like this, in conversations that we're going to have throughout the next couple days, we now have the ability, and I think, the hope of meeting our moment as an industry. because we're at an absolute inflection point and crossroads. Affordable housing remains as one of the major issues from the 60s and 70s to today. And in many ways, affordable housing is an even greater need. How can we as an industry, how can we as professions come together to do it better? Well, we have some ideas, and many of you do. And together, we can create these findings and recommendations and bring them not only up on the hill down the street in Washington, but we can bring these ideas to the main streets, to the farms, to every single community and every single individual and family who wishes to have a home. Because right now, the stock is low, the quality sometimes is lacking, and we have a very aged infrastructure that supports it. We know this and we can do better, and I know that over the next couple of days, you're going to be seeing master practitioners and incredible leaders of the industry come together to talk about what they're doing to progress us forward. NIBS was created in 1974, and we had some interesting missions, one of which was to make sure that we did our part for affordable housing and performance-based codes, etc., and also to be folks who help innovation. So when you talk about transformation, how is it related to innovation? Because at NIBS, I think people here have heard me say, NIBS, we believe that building innovation is the foundation of American innovation. If American innovation is the tide that lifts all boats, building innovation is the baseline depth. And we're very excited because we have this opportunity to create this virtuous cycle where innovation leads to transformation, and transformation fosters innovation. And we have a cycle that continues to better outcomes for the entire nation. I'm very, very proud today to point out to you that we have two particular initiatives that incredibly exciting. Incredibly exciting. The first one, and I want to say hello to our partners at ModX. Our strategic partners at ModX have brought together an amazing group of experts and leaders, and we have very soon a pilot standard for housing system certification. Why is that important? Because it's not the most exciting name. It's important because this is exactly the transformation that we're talking about. HUD developed a roadmap, again, with ModX and NIBS as partners, to unlock for every community true, affordable, resilient housing through off-site means and methods. One of the things that's always been in the way, a challenge, a hurdle that kept us from realizing this potential is this idea that houses are different than any other thing. If you buy a car that was produced in South Carolina and you take delivery in California, you don't expect someone to take apart the car and rebuild it, do you? Why do we feel like we need to do that for housing products? Doesn't seem to make sense. And there are myriad other things that are tied to this locked-in belief that on-site housing is the only way to create housing. This allows us to look forward and say, no, housing can be a certified product that then can be delivered to a site and in place. That's amazing. That's exciting. Exciting for me as a builder. I'm super excited about that. The other thing that I really am very pleased to, and you'll hear a little bit more at lunch, is to announce the relaunch of the Whole Building Design Guide. Whole Building Design Guide, many of you have used, is kind of old school, what they used to call knowledge management platform, for those of you who remember that term, which I think was a very polite way of saying, hey, you took a database and put it online. We are completely relaunching, and we are changing the whole building design guide to be an innovation management platform, not just a database, but a platform through which we can house data to facilitate research. House not just the UFCs and UFGSs, but make it something that is accessible, and through all the various platforms and digital partners, we are leaning in hard on digital delivery. Whole Building Design Guide as a platform will be housing the infrastructure hub. We're going to have a housing hub. We already have SF tools now called high performance building tool as part of it. We're looking to vertically integrate specs so that there's one source that can easily link to whatever software you want to use and help create the foundation for the things that we build. And because of that, have the opportunity to impact that foundation. That's innovation and transformation. And we're so happy that we're going to be able to make that available. In fact, you'll see on the logo there, we're saying that Whole Building Design Guide, innovation starts here. Why? Because innovation starts at the fundamental level. You need a platform that brings everything together so that you can holistically look at something. You need a platform that allows you to split everything apart so that you can dig deep into something. And you need a platform that is available to everyone, that is not behind a paywall, and that is fully functional to support the incredible research and application research that happens across the country every single day. You'll learn a little bit more about that. So over the next 2 days, we're going to have some incredible speakers, starting right now, by the way. There's exciting topics around housing, around the way that the DOE is moving forward with industrialized construction needs and methods, the way that industry is pushing forward, the way that infrastructure is conceived, and how everything can be a system of systems and interconnected. And I'm so very pleased to introduce to you our first Fireside speakers. When we talk about transformation, innovation, and leadership, I have to tell you, I thought to myself, who are two of the best leaders that embody not only innovation leadership, but a master practitioner in transformation? So I'm very, very honored to introduce to you and bring up on stage today Major General Kimberly Colloton and Shiver, who is the General Manager for Procore's public sector. Thank you so much.
I feel like we should have had some walk-up music, right? I don't know what song we would have chosen, but it seems like a good moment for that. Kim, thank you so much for being here and doing this. For me personally, you're a hero, and I think for a lot of people in this room, that's probably true. Would you mind just taking a moment and introducing yourself? I know you don't really need an introduction, but talking a little bit about what brought you here today.
Absolutely. Thank you, and thanks, Blake. Thanks, George, for the invitation to be here. So just to kind of go way back, so I went to undergraduate school for architecture, so building in a very heavy engineering school, but building is in my kind of DNA. before that Legos, like probably many of us out here. But I just retired in December after spending 33 years in the Army and in the Army Corps of Engineers. And really important to be here today as I kind of reflect back on my career. I've had a lot of opportunity starting, as a young captain in the field level, serving to deliver projects at Fort Irwin, Vandenberg Air Force Base, Edward Air Force Base, and then growing over time as you increase in rank and experience to serve at a regional level, having responsibility for a lot of the Southwest and Southwestern United States, and then work in the Middle East overseas, and then most recently finishing, the last couple of years I've been at our headquarters here in DC. And so what that means is I sat through a lot of project review boards and project meetings, and it was easy starting out to know, everything about all those projects. When you had one district that you're responsible for. For me, it was Albuquerque and then Los Angeles. But as I grew, having a deep understanding, being able to go deeper into the understanding of what's happening with these projects that we're charged to deliver, I found that much harder, and especially if you're dealing with PowerPoint deep, which is not a sheet of paper deep, details, it's really hard to really trust that you know what's going on. And so how important it has been to me to work to improve how we see ourselves. And when we got up to the headquarters, we had 44 districts operating at home and overseas, and much harder problem set to deal with, to have really confident information and understanding of where you as a leader can help your team members deliver these critical infrastructure projects. And so I guess I like being here. I appreciate the invitation and us being able to have a discussion, because it is the time to really meet the moment and innovate. And I think we're seeing the need to rebuild or reconstruct or re-innovate the infrastructure that is now reaching its end of life. Mission changes for the Department of War and the DoD are evolving very quickly, so the facilities and infrastructure that supports that is critical. And we've seen a significant number of events, natural disasters, and other events, wildfires, flooding, that has created a urgency for us to improve and innovate and quickly deliver solutions, at the speed of relevance. And so all of that is happening while we're, challenged with our workforce. There's an evolving workforce that is now looking for more flexible options. There's retirement is real. Me retiring recently myself, just going through that. And the workforce that is coming into the picture is new, and they're looking for new ideas and things that will drive, what they're learning and what their passion is. And we that have been around more have to find a way to bring them to it. Blake and I were talking before this over coffee, and he kind of said, think about your career when you were a lieutenant, and I don't know if we have a picture up there. One of them is me rappelling off the side of a tower there. But as a new engineer, construction platoon leader, back in the early 90s, late 90s, Microsoft project was new, to bringing that to managing our construction projects. And I was the highly charged, energetic lieutenant coming into the picture, wanting to really, automate and drive our schedules for every single project we had, and trying to teach the crusty old folks how to use this to really have a better understanding of what we're doing and how we're going to deliver it on time, on budget, and make sure the quality is good. That took some, they giving me space to be open to the new ideas and what I had learned, kind of fresh out of school, and me being open. And so the old kind of dogs, if you will, not being a barrier, but embracing what's coming and that there is power in the new, and me being also receptive to there's a lot to learn from those that have been around a while, and making that all come together in a very collaborative space. So I really appreciate the mission that NIBS has laid out there, the kind of the genesis behind the conference for the next couple of days and the opportunity to just talk about that with you, because I am very passionate about it, and it's kind of driven, it's been driving me throughout my whole career, the importance of working as a team, bringing people together to collaborate, young, new, old ideas all at once to deliver infrastructure. So anyway, thanks, Blake. I would like to hear from you. Your sort of background and really kind of what brought you here today.
Well, it's a much less exciting story. I can promise you there's no pictures of me repelling off of any buildings. Maybe one day. But for me, my career has always been in the private sector software side, but serving public agencies. And that's where I've just decided to plant myself. And I look for opportunities to go to companies that I feel like are doing something unique and special to solve some of the problems that you just talked about. And we're going to go deeper into all of those topics. We've got 5 questions we're going to go through, so we can explore that in more depth. But for me, that's been always what drives me around that mission, and I want to make a difference on it from the private sector side. I came to Procore 2 years ago because I saw that. I saw this very unique approach that this company has taken. If you look at the number of publicly traded companies that are over $1 billion in revenue and have been around for more than 10 years in the software space, it's less than 20 companies. So it's a very small set of companies that have been able to stay focused on their mission that long to really make a difference and to possibly be able to solve some of these problems that we're talking about. So I saw that opportunity, and I've been a part of helping to build this federal practice and this owner's practice at Procore so that we can address that part of the market and really truly connect everyone in construction. It's not just about the people in the field, that's a very important constituent, but it's also about the people that are in this room and the people that are funding these projects, and even the taxpayers that want to know, how did my tax money go and get applied towards building this, and how do we ensure accountability? Those are the types of questions that I want to make sure in my career I really work hard to answer, and partnering with you and with others that are in this room. That's kind of what's brought me here for this moment.
Well, we need it. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, awesome. So let's jump into our questions if that's okay. And we've got 5 to get through, and I think they're awesome, and we spent a lot of time prepping, so we'll go back and forth. But I'll ask the first question. So, Kim, despite decades of modernization efforts, federal capital programs still struggle with fragmented systems. That's like a real thing. So, disconnected data and inconsistent delivery standards. Why do you think that remains such a persistent challenge despite so much energy to try to solve that problem?
So as I thought through this, I think the one, and if many of you have worked with different federal agencies, all are driven by different priorities for one, and often the different and varying funding sources. We have like the DoD has MILCON dollars, operations and maintenance dollars, R&D, working capital funds. The VA has its own variant of that, as well as other government agencies do. The civil works funding that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers executes it's through its own authorizations and appropriations, as well as foreign military sales, and we do a lot of work for foreign partners and allies overseas, and all of that drives our systems fiscally for compliance. Versus maybe speed of delivery and usability of those that are trying to manage and deliver these projects. And so I think we tried to embrace technology fixes, but I think what's important is also having governance, priorities, culture, and alignment, which is hard to achieve when you have so many different agencies. I think also, as I mentioned, the Corps of Engineers is 44 different districts out there. Each of those within one agency, within all the federal government, has its own nuanced cultures out there and develop their own sort of bespoke solutions to things that make it very hard when you're trying to aggregate that to really see what's going on out there. And I think that drives inefficiency. It may work for that team, that local region, but it doesn't allow us to really aggregate that up and really see across the agency. And when I mentioned earlier workforce challenges, as we had a hiring freeze and some retirements and some other losses of personnel to other opportunities, that expertise, those master craftsmen, if you will, trying to leverage the talent that we had across the agency is severely hard when they're all working out there for the 44 different districts. And so it's part of, I think, what we have realized we need to change to be able to see that level of granularity. Your thoughts, Blake?
That's fascinating. It's extremely complex when you think about all these different elements that have to go into that. And then for me, I hate to say this, but I think I've contributed to making that problem worse. So I'm going to have to fix it. At the end of the day, what you're describing is you've got field teams and you've got these office teams, and they kind of have different functionality, different needs. And oftentimes what happens is you have to make choices to adopt different point solutions to meet those needs. And software companies, where I come from, it just makes practical business sense to try to pick a specific problem and solve that problem. And so we all try to differentiate ourselves from one another. We all want to solve a certain problem better than our competitors do, and that creates this sort of myriad of choices for you and for your teams that are doing different pieces of this well. So it sounds good when it's like, oh, I've got a tool that's going to help me with schedule here. It's the best in the world. But then if I've got another tool that's helping with my resource management, somehow they've got to talk to each other, and a lot of times that ends up being a person that has to bridge that gap.
Absolutely.
And so we've created a little bit of that problem, and it kind of goes back to what brought me here. There's just very few companies that have been able to solve these point problems along the way and get it into one connected platform where everybody can actually work together. They have the tools they need, it's one platform, and it just allows them to seamlessly collaborate, and I don't need a person taking data from one place and putting it into another. So trying to defragment those systems is an extraordinarily hard problem to solve, and just very few companies have been around long enough to do it. But I think the good news is that the technology does exist to solve those problems today. And it's not just one company. There are others that are out there that have finally gotten to the point. Now what we've got to do is, how do we help you and others that are in this room align processes and expectations and investments around those platforms, and moving away from some of those point solutions and into these platforms that can allow collaboration at the end of the day. To me, if we've got collaboration and a really good system of record at the base of that, that's going to give us real-time visibility into decision-making. It's going to give us better integrity on the data and really lead into a true digital transformation that I kind of feel like we've been chasing for decades at this point.
Yeah, that's so key. I wrote down, as I was thinking through this, our innovating, it's not about innovating or technology for its own sake. It's about delivering better outcomes for the public, our nation, national security, strengthening trust on the team that's working, that has these problems to solve, and then at the end of the day, building infrastructure that's capable, for the future. So digitization is definitely here, and we hear digital transformation very often. So from your foxhole, Blake, in practical terms, what does it mean to you for infrastructure delivery?
Yeah, well, digital transformation, it's a big concept, and it's not new. Back to the 60s when George was showing the old computers, and that was like the start of the idea of digital transformation. So the idea is to take something that's represented in the physical world, to bring it and represent it in the digital world with the right level of integrity, with the right context, so that we can take advantage of a computer as a tool to increase our productivity. So at the core, it's a great idea. But it ends up becoming a little bit of a mismatch of things because we're trying to bring things in digitally, but then we just have this big lake or cesspool or ocean of data, and we don't know what to necessarily do with it. And so a real modern platform that is creating that shared operating picture and a trusted system of record is extremely important. That idea system of record, it's probably like the most powerful 3 words right now as we're getting into this new world of AI. We're really starting to see the true productivity gains that an organization that has digitally transformed can accomplish. But there has to be a good system of record. And here's what I mean by that, especially in construction, this is super true. What may be true today, like a blueprint, a drawing, something we've all agreed on today, 30 hours from now, it's outdated. We've decided we're going to do something different with that doorway, or maybe our building codes have failed somewhere, we've got to do something. And so now we've created a modification to that, we have a new system of truth. That the ability to capture everything that goes into that decision in one place, and the ability to have a breadcrumb trail from what was the truth yesterday to what is the truth today. Those 2 things add up to create a true system of record. When you have that, you now have the context around your data to say that we've really truly digitally transformed. When I can represent that in one system, in one platform, now I've got that integrity of data, I've got that detail, I've got that breadcrumb of what's happened. I now know I can draw that through line from what I designed and what I intended to what actually happened, and all the little things that happen in between. That's what ultimately can train an AI model. That's what ultimately can create a digital version that a young lieutenant can pick up from a retiring colonel and say, I'm going to learn from that instantly and bring that into my practices today. That allows us to automate processes and really use the power of computers to increase our productivity. And that, for me, at the end of the day, that's what digital transformation is really all about. And like I said, it's been around since the 60s, but right now is the moment to actually make that happen. We've kind of flirted with it, but there's nothing holding us back from making that happen except our own limitations that we place on ourselves at this point.
Yeah, the quote that in God we trust, all others bring data, I think that's foundational to us being able to leap forward, right? I think we discovered that as well, is you really don't have good confidence in the data and the inputs, the feeders, the standards, the codes. And if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to fully embrace, the technology and the opportunities out there to leverage innovation fully. And I think that the need is absolutely important, especially as our programs have grown. We've seen more complex mega projects out there, and lots of turnover for various reasons that we can't afford, at least on the government side, to go back to Congress and say, I need more money and more time because we had a loss, we had a gap between turnover of personnel on the team. And the reality is we've had that happen on multiple of occasions, or we've missed something, and being able to augment our ability to manage and oversee projects with trustworthy data, real-time information changes, really gives leaders decision space to do those kind of things that they can to improve the outcome at the end of the day, which is delivering the infrastructure that is needed.
Yeah, you used a really important word there, trust. Something happens when we take something from the physical world and we move it into the digital world. We create a gap in trust. And if we can do that without creating that gap in trust, I think that's where the secret lies. But that word is probably the most important. Can I trust that this is accurate and that it is the source of truth and that it is the most recent? And that's really what it comes down to. And I think that's where you've got to have that real system of record to make that happen. But yeah, it's amazing.
Yes.
With that said. In God we trust, all else bring data. Okay, so you talked about this earlier, and I think everybody is going to really enjoy going a little deeper on this. So technology alone is not going to solve these project delivery challenges. It's going to come down to leadership and workforce as well too. And so I'm curious, when you think about workforce resilience, you think about some of these almost a crisis that we've seen in workforce now. what are some of those challenges from your perspective, and what are you looking at in terms of making sure there's that resilience there from a workforce and a leadership perspective?
So number one, I think leaders need to be able to be comfortable operating in ambiguity, and team members need to be pulled along and be able to operate and be adaptable to the changing conditions. And in the world we are in building and construction, there's always going to be changing conditions, but it's how we build in space to see it and to be able to influence the outcomes. That could mean, planning for risks and how you realize those risks. And I think that as we get more comfortable in operating in, systems thinking, interoperability, we're able to see the full magnitude of those things that can influence the outcome and mitigate them preventatively or proactively. Mitigate the transitions and the turnovers based on having a system of record, not manual spreadsheets and offline schedules and other things that have nuggets of information and data out there, but they're certainly not available for the team to continue to deliver through these friction points. I think also it's leaders and drivers, those that want to, are passionate about delivering the outcome, the infrastructure, and they need to be able to continue to break down those silos. And that means trust between the silos that have real value to add. The engineering, designers, you got your contracting, acquisition professionals, you got your fiscal, managers that really want to and have to make sure that we come in within budget, or that if we have contingency, we're using it smartly. All of them are protecting and are very skilled in their fields, but being able to understand between how they affect each other, I think is really important. And leaders can change. I kind of say leaders have the controls, the thermostat. They can control the thermostat in the room. And the thermostat controls the climate on the team, and I really relate that to trust. And the climate really drives the culture of the organization. And if you're, as a key team member leader, controlling the temperature and the thermostat and creating an environment where people trust what they're doing, trust the systems that they're working within, trust that the team is all aligned in where they're moving and working, not towards their own individual agendas. Oh, was that?
That's not you.
Oh. Is that fire alarm that George mentioned up front? I was listening to the safety brief. But I think if we can do that, that we will be successful. I think, and that's the leaders controlling the thermostat and really making sure that the climate is conducive to innovation, is built on trust, and you're doing the things to take down friction wherever you can. And I mentioned the old dogs before. Those senior, more seasoned, need to make sure that we are conscious of not getting in the way of innovation, sparks and opportunities, and being willing to allow that to be introduced into the process or into the team. Everybody has a reason to be at the table or on the team, and need to create that space where everybody is safe, but also is able to share.
Well, that's fantastic. I feel like you could teach a master class in leadership, and so much of what you just said resonates with me, and it reminds me just, our veterans have this profound perspective on leadership, and I really want to see more of that coming into the corporate culture, because I think it's really special. It's sometimes a little different than what we hear every day on the corporate side, but amazing to hear you talk about that. For me, just in a nutshell, agreeing with everything you say, I do want to try to find a way to bridge some of these workforce gaps with technology. I don't like to think of them as a divider. I think sometimes the older generation and the younger generation will see technology as a barrier. But I do think we're at this really cool moment where it doesn't have to be a barrier. If I'm a more tenured employee and I'm annoyed by my younger, fresh lieutenant graduates, I could train an AI algorithm with all my wisdom to go and spend the time with them and train them up. And so there's a way that I can use that to bridge the gap. And I think that embracing that and seeing how we can embrace that challenge and how we can use some of that new technology to delegate, but do it in a way that brings about that new generation is something that I'm really passionate about, and bringing that into the fold. But at the end of the day, you're 100% right. Good leadership is really what's going to start with, and empowering people and giving that team the autonomy to go and solve the problems. And if they have the technology to do that in, they're not having to worry about that. They're just getting their work done, and they're doing what they came here to do, to solve those challenges.
Absolutely. So, like we were talking earlier, and you mentioned, and just now, the benefits of AI, and it's really becoming a part of all strategic discussions out there, including, our community, AEC building community. So where do you see the greatest near-term opportunity for AI, and potentially the risks?
That's such a great question, and I love the near-term element to it. And no innovation summit would be complete without an AI question, so it's a perfectly timed one. And yeah, there's a ton of speculation about what will happen in the future with AI, and there's all these different things. But when I think about what's right in front of us, just like any other human innovation, AI is this incredible tool that allows us to do more. If I just kind of stole a term from any economists that are in the room, I remember this from my microeconomics class. You've got, labor and time, and you can combine those in two different quantities, and you get this idea of a production possibilities frontier. It's like the most efficient, output you can create. And the only way to move that sucker out is through technological innovation. And so AI has moved that frontier out incredibly. And I think what we're doing now is toying with ways that it can make us more productive. And I've seen two sides to this coin. I've seen some people say, I want to try to do the same with less. I want to try to produce the same results that I've been used to producing with fewer inputs. I'm not a big fan of that. I think that's like glass half empty. The other thing, and why I'm so excited to talk about this group in particular, because you're generally not worried about profits. You're worried about, I've got to meet the public demand. I've got to try to do as much as possible with the limited budget and resources that I have. And I think that is a very, very fertile ground for wonderful AI use cases. And so how do we do more with the resources we have? So we did this really interesting simulation. We just did it I came up with the idea on Friday, worked with my team a little bit over the weekend. We didn't work too hard. And then on Monday in the morning, we recorded this short demo. And I'm not going to show the demo, but there's a QR code that'll come up on the screen if you're interested. It's like 20 minutes, and it shows the simulation that I'm about to describe. But we talked about what happens when a natural disaster hits. All of a sudden, you wish that you could clone your people. You could have 10,000 of your people. Maybe you only got 1,000. You want to 10x that overnight, because now all of a sudden you've got to respond to this disaster. So we simulated the scenario with an AI agent in our data grid Procore platform. So we took an agent that's specifically trained on disaster response. We loaded in thousands of pages of NIB's whole building design guide content, and it learned it in like a minute. It was kind of like when they hooked Neo up to the Matrix and teach him jiu-jitsu. It just learned it. It would have taken me, I'm a slow reader, it would have taken me like a month to get through that stuff. And I probably wouldn't retain it all. It learned it perfectly in minutes. Then we told it, hey, there's been a hurricane that hit in the southeast. It's displaced hundreds of thousands of people. And there are a couple of petroleum refineries that are in the area. There's possibly a hazardous material contamination. Build me an emergency response plan and a reconstruction plan. Just go. This thing ran for about 7 minutes, and it came back with this incredible detailed plan for both of those things. It also cited from the whole building design guide what elements it used, and it gave us a confidence rating and said, I had to make up 0% of this. Everything that I needed to provide this output to you came from the things that you gave me. If it would have had to make anything up, it would tell us. I made up 2% of this, and I've highlighted the areas where I had to get creative. And so I thought about how powerful this would be if I was in that situation. It's almost like Mario eating the mushroom and getting bigger and supersizing instantly. I'm able to scale out what my limited resources are able to do. And I'm able to run some of this in parallel. And I'm able to take something that might have taken months to sequentialize with old technology and get it down to minutes. So months to minutes. That's going to save lives. That's going to, help people be comfortable, return to their homes. Their lives were just disrupted, their memories, potentially washed away, and able to get them back into that semblance of home faster. Those things are very meaningful, and at the end of the day, I feel like that's just one of hundreds of use cases where we can take that technology. It exists today. I mean, it's not, by the way, it's not a fancy demo, there's no production value. We kept it extremely authentic because to me, there's no need to judge anything up here. This is available today. We have this technology. And I thought if my team of people who don't do this for a living could come up with this in a couple of hours over a weekend, how could maybe some people at USACE or NAVAC or FEMA who do this every day, how could it help them be more productive? How could it help remove stress from them and help them achieve their mission of saving lives and rebuilding faster? So that was just a really cool example that we did, and it gave myself a lot of pride and a lot of energy, and my entire team was extremely motivated by it. And I feel like those are the use cases that are around us right now. So when we're able to work with that technology, and it's working in a platform that it can not only tell us what to do, but it can actually tee up work for us. It can actually manage applications of contractors and route them to the places real time where they're needed the most, and augment my human ability to make the decisions and to deploy resources. That's extraordinarily powerful.
I'm so glad you did that. We talked about that, and I think that's such a powerful example in real time. I know when I was getting last year when I was still at USACE, we were talking about, to just come back to our last topic about digital transformation, how important it is to have systems of record and keep notes on what we've done during previous disasters and response efforts, as well as projects, to have good data as a foundation to feed into AI, capabilities, just like that. Then take that, come up with opportunities for solutions. And I had lunch with a colleague last week, a few days ago, and the way she described it, she works in the AEC industry, just talking about disasters. They happen fast, and you have to respond fast, and you do have to figure out, how am I going to respond to this need, 10 times my staff to get out there to do this and come up with solutions. But also just regular, seemingly routine or more standard projects and solicitations. She described to me, she's like, it's incredible. 6 opportunities just popped up out of nowhere. And interestingly enough, not through the Corps of Engineers, but through other organizations using other transaction authorities, wanting responses back in very quick periods of time. The ability to come up and partner with someone and then provide at least a description and a solution, a proposal quickly. It's absolutely the need and the demand to come up with solutions and respond quickly is not just under crisis and natural disaster now. It's the real need that we have to deliver solutions, for facilities and infrastructure across the federal government.
That's just endless use cases. We're just beginning to explore them, but they're here.
Yeah.
I think that's what's really interesting. They're here. It's not future talk, and it can really change the way the work is done. It can also change the way wisdom is handed down. I mean, that reading those 1,000 pages of full building design guide is pretty arduous, but it effectively took decades and generation of wisdom and allowed me to apply it in context in minutes. And I think that's really powerful. We've never had that capability before. So that's another way of kind of keeping the workforce transition in place as well. All right, so great question. So last question, Kim, when we reconvene, not if, when we reconvene 5 years from now, I hope even sooner.
All right.
What would meaningful progress across federal infrastructure delivery actually look like?
So as I thought about this, I kind of said I'd like to see progress, obviously faster project delivery with fewer surprises, but also being able to deliver within, years versus decades. And I think we're getting, a lot of pressure to do that, now in real time. The Assistant Secretary of the Army has an initiative called Build Infrastructure, Not Paperwork. And I think being able to leverage AI capabilities and other technology, to collaborate faster and deliver, viable solutions to get the infrastructure out of the paperwork and just in plans, but actually into the ground is really important. I did a little research and looked up the ASCE's, the report card on our America's infrastructure. And for 20 years, when they started tracking kind of 1998 to 2017, we were sitting at a D, D rating, plus or minus, but generally D. And then from kind of 2018 until 2025, this last decade, we kind of slowly came up to a C. I'd like to see us quickly in the next 5 years, if really we're embracing the significant infrastructure that we need, and if the investments, which I know are there, happen, that we could get that up to a B.
Oh yeah, I think that's very well said, and I hope we can get it to even an A, maybe. I have the privilege to do a little bit of world travel with Procore, even though my job is here in the U.S. I'll get pulled to a team meeting that's in, London or, something in Dubai. And so I get to kind of see how different cultures around the world are performing in terms of their construction. And when especially in Dubai, which I think, are you scaling a building in Dubai in the building picture? It was a little bit familiar
that was another Netflix series with the climber.
Yeah,
No,
okay,
it's not me.
okay. So they have made it such a priority to be the world leader in construction. And I feel like we're a little timid about making that claim. We want it. I can see it in everything we're doing. We're taking these massive projects, and we're building these extraordinarily cool things. But I think sometimes we give ourselves a C, and really though we have the potential to be A+. We just have to make it important. And so trying to help and partner with our public sector teams and understand really deeply what's holding you back from your mission. Is it a technology thing? Is it a people thing? Is it an adoption thing? Whatever it is, understanding that and advancing towards really that A status. There is no reason why any country in the world should be able to outperform the United States of America when it comes to our ability to deliver critical infrastructure and have the best construction, the best roads and bridges and museums in the entire world. And so I really feel like we are within 5 years of not only achieving that, but confidently making it a priority and standing up and leading the world in it and not feeling like others are getting in front of us.
All right, I'm going for the A. We're gonna collaborate to not just graduate, but to get the A.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
But the A, you do the same.
Yes, that's right. Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think this has been incredible, and I hope it's been really valuable for everyone here. We wanted to just have an authentic conversation and not be overly about any one particular piece of technology, but just around this idea of how we can really do a lot more with what we have, and sometimes just seeing that and seeing the moment that we're in and saying, hey, this is the time to truly modernize. There's never been a better time to make some of those big moves and really push the needle forward. And it can be an incredible either legacy that you're leaving with your teams or an incredible impact you're making on the new teams that you're coming into. Any kind of closing thoughts from you, Kim, as we close out and move to our next topic?
Yeah, I think one we came up with was together, really was, it's about delivering better outcomes for the public, strengthening trust in the community so we overcome any of the friction that is there that prohibits, sharing and willingness to kind of go all in, and at the end, having aligned outcomes. We want to deliver the infrastructure, as you said, to be the greatest nation in the world, and our people need it. I mean, I think we talk about housing, we'll talk about housing later. We have a responsibility in this profession, to deliver this infrastructure because our country, our nation, our partners and allies need it. So,
absolutely. Well said. Well, thank you. This has been an honor and
thank
privilege.
You, Blake.
Thank you. All